Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and I am so excited for today's episode because not only are we joined by an incredible guest and fellow entrepreneur, but I can honestly say in over 1,100 episodes, I don't think you listeners have ever heard me say this. This is one of my favorite businesses that I've ever had the chance to interview their founders because every single thing I found about the way this business operates, its commitment to customer service, its commitment to seeing its clients succeed, I am blown away by the branding, the positioning, the level of service and care. There's so much goodness that we're going to learn from today's fellow entrepreneur. So let me introduce you to Dave Olsen. Dave is a CPA and the founder and CEO of Nimble, which is a modern accounting and business services company serving $1 to $10 million businesses. Nimble has grown into a fully remote team of over 100 professionals delivering tech-forward accounting, tax, finance, IT, and offshore staffing solutions. Before launching Nimble in 2018, Dave spent over a decade as a fractional CFO for small businesses, helping founders gain financial clarity and make smarter decisions. Dave is passionate about reimagining the business services industry from how companies scale and lead to how they leverage technology and improve quality of life for their teams. Dave has such a depth and breadth of business experience. I'm excited about this one. So let's dive straight into my interview with Dave Olsen. All right, Dave, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Super excited to be here. Thanks for the great introduction. And yeah, look forward to this conversation.
Heck yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I am so excited not only to hear about all the great things going on at Nimble, but to get into your backstory. Obviously, I teased your bio a little bit, but take us beyond the bio. Who's Dave? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Yeah, so I had a long tail as a technician. So I'm a CPA, like you mentioned, started in public accounting, was a fractional CFO for about 10 years. And really my story is defined by loving doing the work and but see myself as a technician, not necessarily a business owner. So it took me a long time. It took me those 10 years to really realize that what I was doing really was a business and an incredible business and one that could make a difference for a lot of business owners. And yeah, it took me that 10 years to make the leap, and I've been building for the last 7 years, and it's been, just been an incredible journey.
Yeah, I love that overview, especially because you called it out right here at the top of today's episode about the difference between a technician and a founder. And obviously that's a role that more and more people step into. Dave, I'll throw myself under the bus, is that we throw entrepreneur around so willy-nilly now. Everybody has it in their Instagram bio that I think we've lost the core functions of what a founder is and how that mindset plays into business growth. Take us a little bit deeper there.
Yeah, I think the way I see founder, especially in the industry that I'm in and from my background, is taking that technician craft and that pride in the service delivery and the things that we deliver for clients, the expertise in a certain field, in my case, like accounting and technology, and turning that into a system and a business that really makes a difference and that can recruit a team to go along with it and to go beyond just the technician doing the work and to create a system, to create something that others can step into and really make that impact.
Yeah, along those lines, I would imagine that there's probably at least a few hundred CPAs or accountants listening to this episode right now and thinking to themselves of, Dave, you're next level. Because for me as a CPA or an accountant, I just want to freelance. Like, that's my idea of a business. Obviously, what you've built in Nimble is far bigger than just you being a freelancer accountant. Talk to us about both what Nimble does and what separates it from so many accountants who just become freelancers. And then most importantly, what did that decision point look like for you? Because you could have become just a freelancer, but you actually built a real flourishing business out of it.
Yeah, that's how a lot of accounting businesses are. They may be a solo person or just a very small team. And I think it's not uncommon in any kind of technician-led business as well, where the craft is most important and it's hard to scale that craft. And so, yeah, it's just an incredible opportunity to, for me, to progress beyond that, to see myself as someone who is capable of doing more than just technician stuff, but actually building a business out of it. And it took me, like I said, it took me 10 years to really drum up the courage and the experience and the encouragement to do that. Really, the turning point for me was, in that 10 years as a fractional CFO, I was systems oriented. So I was creating a system and realized that I could do what I was doing, but also hire to offload some of the more administrative stuff that I was doing. So I had a few people in the Philippines in the background doing some of the bookkeeping work and the data entry and that kind of thing. And I was still the face of the client. In about middle of 2017, I was in a sales call with a client, and this client was a prospect at the time. He's an executive coach, and he's, as is his nature, he started asking me more about my business than I was asking about his. And I started telling him about the system I'd created and the desire that I had to make something bigger out of it, to make a bigger impact, and also how I just didn't see how to scale it, and more importantly, I didn't see how I could build a bigger, flourishing business with lots of employees and lots of clients, while also not sacrificing my lifestyle. My kids were in their kind of tweens. I was working on my health and traveling and that kind of thing, and I was making good money, so I had a really good life, but I just felt called to do something more. And he kind of just looked at me in the eye and said, well, why can't you have both? Why can't you build a bigger business and also have a great lifestyle? And that's really been kind of my guiding ethos, I guess, as I built this business, is to build it in a way that's sustainable, that makes an impact, but also provides a great life for me, and then by extension for our team. One of the core purpose that we declare as Nimble is to provide freedom for our team, provide freedom for our clients. And any one person can define what freedom means to them, but whatever that is for them, we want to discover what that is and enable it for them. And the crazy thing is, 7 years later, much bigger business, lots of employees, and I have a better life, more flexibility, and more fulfillment than I had when it was just me, or almost just me. So it's been a fun journey in that way.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to go so much deeper there, because a lot of listeners are going to be hearing that, and obviously, if people are watching on video, they can see you smiling, Dave. That the fact that you're running a 100+ person company, but also living life. I feel like societally and colloquially, we forget that you can have both of those things. So we're definitely going to go deeper into the lifestyle stuff. Before we get there, though, I love how you honed right in on the importance of your messaging and positioning in the marketplace. And I'm just going to read this for listeners, because I think it so succinctly shares your mindset towards what Nimble is and what Nimble does. It says, Nimble is a modern accounting and business services company that helps small businesses scale with clarity and confidence. I love the way that that's articulated, Dave, because you're not selling accounting and finance and IT services. You're selling something much bigger and more important than that to your clients. But of course, the vehicle is accounting, finance, that clarity that comes with knowing your numbers. Why is that such a powerful vehicle for this thing that we all desire when it comes to freedom?
Yeah, one reason I'm so passionate about it is because I and our team are really selling the journey that I've been on, the journey of going from that startup, small business, technician, whatever that journey may look like, to breaking through the messy middle and building into a real business. And that journey involves a lot of details, a lot of administration, things like accounting and tax and IT and data security and HR and all those things that most entrepreneurs just really don't love. That's not why they started their business. They started their business to get a product out there, or to provide a service, or to sell. That's really the typical entrepreneur profile, is to do those front-facing things, and not all the back office stuff. And it just happens that my passion is that back office, the systems, the administration. Call me crazy, but it's something I really am passionate about and enjoy. So I can turn that passion and my team's passion into just taking it off the plate of the entrepreneur, so they can just focus on running and not be dragged down by all the back office stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about back office stuff then, because you've seen businesses at all different levels throughout your career, not just in what you've done with Nimble. And I think obviously with Nimble, your sweet spot. You know that for businesses between $1 million and $10 million a year, you all essentially fill a gap of having an entire outsourced department that manages and runs stuff for them. And I think that's a really powerful model. But there's obviously a big gap between, let's say, people starting out, maybe if they're around $10,000 a month, they've hit that 6-figure mark, and then hitting that million, and then a big gap to get to 10 million as well. What are some of those inflection points along the way? What are some of those strategic things that you've noticed that take businesses to that next level?
Yeah, there's a lot of those inflection points that you mentioned. One is funding. Like, at what point do you are you running short on cash, or do you want to make some investments and you don't have the cash flow to do that? And whether it be bank loans or investors, or just simply managing your cash better so that you can reinvest in growth. And again, using the technician starting point that I had as a service business, it's a great way to get started because it doesn't require a lot of capital. It's just your sweat equity, providing a service, collecting for that service. But then, what does that look like to take in cash, to manage that cash and to reinvest or to take on investment? Often, a technician, and for the example in the accounting industry, a typical benchmark is about 500,000. A lot of technicians can get to that point with maybe a little bit of support. But to break past that 500,000, especially that million mark, it takes more capital, it takes more hiring, more of a system. And so we can, from the accounting perspective, we can help them navigate that, help them understand how to use their cash, what are their investment options, give them the clarity and the reporting that they need to go to banks or investors, and that kind of thing. So that's the actual finding capital side of it. But the other side is to really be cost efficient in how we handle your back office. A lot of entrepreneurs don't know that there's somewhere in between either doing it all themselves or hiring full-time people to do it. And doing it all themselves bogs them down, and some may have enough of a background in accounting in college or something like that, where they feel like they can open up a QuickBooks file and do the bookkeeping themselves. Or on the flip side, they think, well, either I'm not capable or I just don't have time anymore to do this back office stuff. I'm going to hire people. So I'm going to hire full-time people. But then you get to the trap of, okay, I need to hire someone, but who do I hire? Do I hire a CFO who really knows what they're doing and can do everything, but is going to be super expensive and take all my cash flow? Or do I hire like my neighbor, the bookkeeper, who can categorize transactions, but really doesn't have a sense for capital strategy or creating a scalable system? And so we fill that gap in the middle, where we give you a whole team. We give you a CFO, a controller, a manager, a bookkeeper, an IT specialist, all these roles, but we only pay for the fraction of what you need. Some of our clients, as they're getting started, may just only be paying $500 to $1,000 a month for all this, and then we just scale up with them, so you can be super cash efficient as you grow, while also having the expertise to guide you.
Yeah, I love hearing that, especially because I know a lot of listeners' ears are going to perk up when you say $500 to $1,000 a month. We've never had a time that these types of services, these types of fractional services, have been more accessible. It's the most accessible time in our world and in history. What I think of is this is a great model that has impacted every single industry. As someone who uses video editors, for example, there's now video editing services that you pay a flat monthly rate, and they have a team of video editors that know what they're doing. They have all the back-end systems that support that. So we as the clients, we don't need to figure that stuff out. You guys bring the tech stack. You guys bring so many of those parts of the solutions. Talk to us about that model. And I don't know if this is a controversial question, Dave, or not. You and I didn't talk about this off the air, but obviously a lot of people are familiar with this in your world because of Bench, which did make a big splash in the marketplace, but they also left a lot of people hanging within the past year when they went out of business. What are some of those special considerations to build a sustainable service that doesn't go the route of letting a lot of people down?
Yeah, I love that question, and it's one that I'm happy to address because it really highlights what we do and how we're different. So a lot of, and I call out tech entrepreneurs here. Some tech entrepreneurs that don't have an accounting or bookkeeping background, they think, categorizing transactions, that's simple. We can use AI to do that. We can automate that, and let's just build a software to automate accounting and put accountants out of business. And I can't speak to the founding stories for all these companies like Bench and other kind of high volume tech-enabled services. But really what gets discovered pretty quickly, or sometimes down the road and after burning tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, is you can't get away from a couple of things. One is the human touch component of handling financial information. Most business owners, they don't necessarily want to be on the phone or talking about the accounting all the time, but they want someone that they can ask questions to. They want an expert in their corner that can help them as they need it. So the expertise and the human touch is one part of it. The other part is that the surface level of accounting can seem very simple. Yeah, you can use AI to categorize bank transactions. That's an easy one. But you go beyond that level, and it's so much more complex. Of how do you account for things? How do you clean up complex set of transactions? How do you present it in a way that actually gives a accurate reflection of how the business is doing and help you make decisions? Technology can really enable and help get to a certain point, but it really takes a human expert to take it to that last, whatever it is, 10% to actually make it useful. And a lot of these, like I said, these technology companies have missed on that. So we're not going to come in at, 100, 200, 300 a month like Bench did or does. We're going to, starting point minimum 500 a month, but we're going to give you expertise, and we're really going to provide value and a team behind you, humans you can talk to help you scale beyond that.
Yeah, I really appreciate those insights, because I especially having gone deep into the world of Nimble, that you're not a Luddite by any means. You do embrace and see the power of technology. Talk to us about what that future looks like, because a lot of people, I feel like, and myself included, we're investing in AI, we're investing in tech in so many different ways, but you clearly believe in the fusion of tech and humans. How long is that going to last? Do you see something changing on the longer term horizon? I'd love to hear some insights there.
Yeah, I don't see the human element ever going away in most industries. Maybe there's some that can be fully automated and AI can take over, and that's great if it can work. But the future I see in accounting and any kind of high touch service is a kind of a three-pronged approach, and it's one we've taken from the beginning. And the developments in AI are just first, the cloud software developments really enabled the first two, and those two are online software that allow you to do work from anywhere with anyone, and then offshore teams has made it a lot more accessible. Before 10 or 15 years ago, there is a lot of offshore industries like call centers and things like that, but there wasn't a lot of kind of offshore teams accessible to small business because of technology. But with online software, it makes it so much more accessible. So the three-pronged approach I see as a future is the combination of automating as much as possible through technology, and we all know AI is doing that. Using those where you can use offshore teams and global teams to streamline a lot of the kind of the day-to-day, more ongoing work, and then the highly paid experts, in our business, our US team are the ones who are providing value to the clients, are the ones interacting. And so we're using our global teams and technology to streamline the work as much as possible. And then we're freeing up our team to focus on that high touch client experience and to really be that partner to the business owner and help guide them. So they're not, bogged down in all the bank reconciliations. They can actually have time to spend time with the clients.
Yeah, I love that three-pronged approach. Dave, I'm going to call this out while we're on the air together, because I think it's really important. As the host of a business podcast, I'm always cognizant of the fact that when podcast guests come on here, especially with businesses like yours, everything seems so polished and seems like that finished product. And especially, I'm so excited for listeners to check out your website, because not only is your website incredible, your branding is amazing. Like, everything looks like the final product, because obviously you've been building this for almost a decade now. With that said, I'm also very aware of the fact that it didn't start out that way. Of course, there was a V1 of Nimble. I'd love for you to take listeners behind the scenes into those beginning days, because when they look at Nimble, I want them to fully appreciate the small steps that it took to get there. You didn't start out with a team of 100 plus people from around the world. What did those building blocks actually look like?
Yeah, I'd love to take you through that story, and that three-pronged approach is really going to show up in that story. The first step, when it was just me, was it was kind of the early and mid 2010s when online software was really becoming more prominent. QuickBooks Online became usable at about 2015. I was using Xero before that, Gusto, Bill.com. All those software enabled to provide a tech stack, a remote tech stack that enable these cloud accounting businesses. So the first step was just me, fractional CFO. I could really leverage technology to provide these services remotely to businesses across the country and across the world. And then the next step is I started to tap out my own time, and the ability to automate what I was doing with technology was to add a few offshore people to do some of the bookkeeping and the administrative work kind of in the background. And what that did is it allowed me to leverage my time and actually learn how to create a system. So that was that next step was forcing myself to create a system that I could plug people into, and it was a low risk way to test that system. And then the third step was to start hiring in the U.S. and in Canada, and that was about 2018 when I started that. And the story really shifted from technology to offshore team to becoming all about. And the offshore team was all about people too, and learning people leadership in that point. But as I built a U.S. team that I could turn over the actual client-facing work, it introduced a whole new dimension that I think for me was the kind of the heart of the transition from that technician to business leader and founder, was learning how to hire and lead people. I thought I've been a CFO, I've been in boardrooms, I've been on leadership teams, I know how to run a business. But it wasn't until I actually hired my own team and started leading people and managing performance, monitoring performance, and creating a culture and intentionally cascading that culture, that I realized that I had no clue how to really build a business. And it took me quite a while and a lot of missteps. And I feel bad for some of the early team members who I just was not a good leader for. I was not good at choosing the right team members that had impacts on the rest of the team. So yeah, a lot of those early learnings and that early journey that's a little less polished than it is now had a lot to do with my inadequacies and my weakness around leading people. And it really motivated me to force me to learn as quickly as I could, learn from my mistakes, and learn from coaches and others on how to step up my leadership skills. And that has made a huge difference in getting us to where we are today.
Yeah, I so appreciate your transparency and sharing those insights with us, Dave, because a lot of people will recognize, I think back to my college self when I was in business school and I was running my first company. I had about 20 people working on my team at that time, and I was convinced, I was like, let's scale this up to 20,000 employees. But at 20, Dave, I realized my day-to-day is now putting out fires and answering my phone and answering emails. And of course, I didn't have a fractional HR back office. I didn't have any of that support staff. And so I had to learn the quick way that the more you grow, the more your team grows, your function changes. You called it out right there. You had to be a leader of people at that time, at that point in time. Obviously, you have found a way to balance it all. I promised we'd come back to lifestyle stuff. Talk to us about that, because obviously you've got a family, you've got a lot of responsibilities in your life, and you also have 100+ people around the world relying on Nimble as their source of living and their source of impact and contribution to the world. How have you structured in a way that still allows you to love and enjoy your life as much as you do?
Yeah, really, I set out to build the company that I would want to work for and the companies that I would want my kids to work for. Actually, 2 of my kids are interns, so it's coming about several years later. But really, what it was about, remote first was the starting point. So I've been remote my whole time as a fractional CFO, and as we started building in 2018, I started building a fully remote company. So that was even before the pandemic, before remote was cool. And what remote work does is it allows, first of all, we can access talent anywhere in the world. We're not depending on a certain geographic location. But then the additional benefit is people can be flexible in their schedules, which is really important to me in building my family and my health and my hobbies and that kind of thing. I wanted flexibility. So if I want to, I'm big into mountain biking and road biking, and depends on the time of year. Some of the best times to go is like in the early morning or an afternoon, when it normally would be, if you're going into the office, would be tough to do. So I still working like crazy, but I could have some flexibility around the hours that I chose to work, and then allowing my team the freedom to set their own schedules too. Besides any meetings we have scheduled or things like that, our team is free to work on the hours that work for them, as long as they can support clients and lines up with collaborating with the team and that kind of thing. But there's no like clock in at 9, clock out at 5. It's get the work done when it works for you and when it works for the team. And that, again, that goes back to the flexible definition of freedom too, that what people want to do with that is up to them. Like maybe people prefer to work a standard 9 to 5 day every day and have that structure in their lives, or they can flip that around completely. So it's really about high performance in the business and being clear about what what is our vision? What are the outcomes we want to have? What are we creating in the business? And working super hard and performing well in building that. But then beyond that, having the flexibility to create the life that we want outside, because we know that the business is important. We all want to make a living. We want to make an impact on our clients, but there's so much more to life than that, and I want to have that be kind of forefront into the experience that our team has.
Yes, I love how intentional you are with all of those things, especially because I'm picturing you just enjoying all of the natural beauties that Utah has to offer. And it's clear that that's so important to you. And that's important for you with your team as well, that they have the opportunity to do that. I'm going to totally put you on the spot here, because knowing how intentional you are with all of these things, I want to get into Dave, the CEO's mind. I want to know what your executive time looks like. And maybe it's not formal, maybe it doesn't even happen behind a desk, but I want to know, because clearly you are a builder, you're a visionary that thinks about not just today, but where you want to be tomorrow. And you're super intentional, which is why you have a team of over 100 people and why you serve such a cool clientele. What are those executive level questions that you ask of yourself? What are the introspections that you do? Do you have a board that you bounce ideas off of? I'd love to get into Dave's executive time and the executive mind.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot I could say around here. One is top of mind is people. My team is most important. I'll drop anything if my team needs something, or if I can have a one-on-one or a coaching session. That comes first. So I spend a lot of my week around team meetings, whether it be one-on-ones with my direct reports, leadership team meetings. One really fun thing that we do is we have leadership groups where our entire team is divided up into groups of 5 or 6 people each, and it varies by location, tenure within the company, position. So it's a mix in each team, and they meet every other month, and I facilitate every one of those. And it's kind of like a group leadership development, coaching, training session. It allows me just to really get personal and in depth with each one of our team members. So it gives me the touch point with the whole team. Otherwise, as a CEO, I could be pretty far removed from the team. Just work with my direct reports and the leadership team, and not really have regular interactions with the whole team. So that's something I really look forward to. Beyond people, looking at the vision and strategy and the direction of the industry, especially with how fast the world is changing today around AI and everything else going on, the economy and the uncertainties. It's really important for me to stay up on the latest developments. So I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of networking with peers in the industry, in other industries, just to keep a pulse on where the world is going, where the industry is going, and looking at how does that affect Nimble, and what adjustments can we make? Just an example with that was I've been, like a lot of people, watching AI really closely. And up until probably 3 months ago or so, I saw the future coming, and I could see that it was changing and would change the world, but I wasn't seeing a lot of direct application for our team or for our industry. And about 3 months ago, that just a switch flipped for me. It's like, yeah, now's the time. Now's the time we need to go in and start investing in training our team and adopting some of these tools. So we've been really intentional in the last 3 months about rolling out AI across our team in certain ways, and really leaning into that direction. And so me keeping a pulse and a sense for what's going on helped me kind of see when was the right time to make that switch as a company, or that next step. So that gives you an example of how I operate. I think you asked also about some of like a board or a guidance I receive. That same executive coach that I mentioned that I met in 2017 continues to be my executive coach today, and it's really important time for me each week to check in with him and to kind of recenter on my intentions for the business and my own personal growth. That's been a real big enabler of my own growth and the business growth over the last few years.
Yes, I so appreciate those insights, Dave. You are so transparent and so generous in the way that you share your brilliance, and that's what makes me really excited to ask you this final question, because it's super broad. I have no idea which direction you're going to take it in, and that is, what's your one best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and as a fellow entrepreneur yourself, what's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Yeah, I would say be intentional and get clear about the life and the future that you want to create. My definition of leadership that I got from my executive coach is leadership is creating a future that wouldn't happen otherwise and that takes into account the needs of all relevant stakeholders. And so but in order to create that future, you have to be clear about it. So I'd get really clear about the future you want to create and then be intentional about creating it. And kind of related to that is, I learned a long time ago, and I'm still learning today, that imposter syndrome is real. It's easy to look at others as having it put together or having more expertise or more experience or more knowledge, and thinking I can't do that. I can't do what they're doing. But the older I get, the more people I interact with, the more I learn, the more I realize that nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's just trying to figure it out. And so if there's a future you want to create, then you can go and create it. You're not any less capable of anyone else who's created a great future. So yeah, create the future. Go for it.
Yes, I love that advice, Dave. I knew that you would absolutely deliver from beginning to end, and listeners know that I don't frequently claim one of our guests to have one of my favorite businesses and founders that I've ever interviewed. And this is almost 1,200 episodes in, Dave. I so respect and admire all the things that you've built and that you're continuing to build. And I feel like today you dropped so many nuggets of knowledge that's why I always say success leaves clues. And it's because you're super intentional about the future that you are creating for yourself, for your family, for your business, for your team members. And I so appreciate the way that you show up. So for listeners who want to go deeper into why I love Nimble so much and all the great things that you're doing, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, you can check out our website at trustnimble.com, and Nimble is Nimbl, no E, trustnimble.com. And feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn too, Dave Olsen Nimble. I should come right up, and send me a DM, and I'd be happy to chat.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You see, if you watch this on video, you see how happy and excited Dave is to talk about all of these things. You can tell that this is someone who loves what he does, so he means that he's super accessible. And most podcast listeners are too shy to ever reach out to people that they hear on podcast episodes. So you will be one of very few who actually are brave enough to start creating that future that you've been dreaming of. So don't be shy about reaching out to Dave. Otherwise, Dave, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Okay, thanks, Brian. It's been great to talk to you.